Islam. If there's anything lovely, if there's anything desirable, if there's anything within the reach of man that is worthy of praise, is it not knowledge? And yet, who is it that obtaineth it? The statesman proclaimeth that he have it. The ruler of the people claimeth the praise of it, but find it the subject that he possesses it. Evil is not requisite to man, neither vice can be necessary to be tolerated. Yet how many evils are committed by the convenience of the laws? How many crimes committed by the decree of the council? But be wise, O rulers, and learn, O thou that are to command the nations. One crime authorized by thee is worse than the escape of 10 from punishment. And the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the name and principles that delude to slavery. At this time, I'd like to recite the Moorish American prayer, the source from which we draw our strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. First off, I'd like to rise, rocking my soul in the bosom of Abraham, giving praise to Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. I'd like to give honor to Allah's holy and illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali, the founder of our address, the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'd like to give honor to the forerunner to the prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Moses Garvey. I'd like to give honor to Marcus Moses Garvey because this brother had to have pure thoughts in order to pave the way for love. I'd like to give honor to all of those and honor to all of you that have and will aid and assist us in this, our divine and gigantic mission, the uplifting of fallen humanity. I'd like to give a special honor to Temple 2 here in Portland, Oregon. And last but not least, I'd like to give honor to FFIT because so many of us don't even try. And as we travel, we'd like to give honor to Brother Hassan in Portland, Oregon, Signal here, Open Signal, for giving us this platform to be able to talk to you about the last prophet in these days and times, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the only one who brought us our nationality and our divine creed. At this time, I'd like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, the Book of the Seven Seals. The number was April, the opening reads from its sacred pages the messages of purity and love. I want to read a chapter this evening, one of the chapters that Noble Drew Ali brought to us in this Moorish Holy Quran, because you know at the beginning of the chapter, he said these lessons, the Muslims of India, Egypt, and Palestine had these secrets and kept them back from the outside world, but when the time was appointed by Allah, they loosened the keys, and the first time in ages have these secrets been delivered into the hands of the Muslims of America. So at this time, I'd like to read one of the chapters that Noble Drew Ali brought. And this chapter is chapter 45. The title of this chapter is The Divine Origin of the Asiatic Nation. And it is read on this wise. The divine origin of the Asiatic nation. The fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nations of North America need to learn to love instead of hate, and to know of their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for the teaching and instructing all Moorish Americans, etc. The key of civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nation, the Moorish, who were the ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca. Oh yeah? The Egyptians, who were the Hammatites and a direct descendant of Mizraim. The Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese and Chinese. The Hindus of India, the descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites from the land of Canaan. The Asiatic nations of North, South, and Central America, the Moorish Americans and the Mexicans of North America, the Brazilians, Argentinians, and Chileans in South America, the Colombians, the Nicaraguans, and the natives of San Salvador in Central America, etc., all of these are Muslims. The Turks are the true descendants of Hagar, who are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed, beginning from Muhammad I, the founder of the uniting of Islam by the command of the great universal God, Allah. Thus we just had a reading of the Moorish Holy Quran, divinely prepared by our Holy Prophet Noble Ali for our earthly and our divine salvation. Praise Allah and honor to the Prophet Noble Ali. We are honored to be able to come before our Portland listening audience again to talk to you about the last prophet, Noble Ali. And we are talking to you today from the Last Supper, because you remember when Jesus was with his disciples at the Last Supper, what did he feed them? He fed them food for thought. And in chapter 17 of the Moorish Holy Quran, verse 24, it talked about when Jesus was talking to Claudia and Judith on a tower near Rome in 1724, he talked about the watery grave. So after you hear us teaching from the Moorish Holy Quran this morning, you no longer will be sinking down to death. You will be like Claudia and Judith, and we're going to become the prophet's ambassadors to Rome. Now, my subject matter this morning, is nationality. And the reason why my subject matter is nationality, because everyone has one except the so-called Negro, colored, and black. Because Drew Ali said these names was given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. Now we have been blessed here in Portland, Oregon. Our chairman, Brother Rambo, has begun to get with some of his people that he grew up with, and they have a couple of houses, and these houses, they have children in them. And he began to bring the children to the Moorish Science Temple of America. And as the children come to the Moorish Science Temple of America, we find out that all of them have different nationality. But you just heard me read, if one of them is from Laos, then you can go back to China, because when you begin to talk about Hagar, Drew Ali say of Japanese and Chinese. Then he talked about Brazilians in here. And Drew Ali told us that there was a Negro River. And he said the Negro River is in Brazil. And he said Negro River is in West Africa. But through scientific study and investigation, we come to find out that the Negro River is in Brazil today. And through the Berlin Conference, Brazil is another part of West Africa. Just like in this chapter we just read, it say the holy city of Mecca, it say the ancient Moabites founded it. So now we see why a lot of people don't want you to see a picture of Prophet Muhammad. And the reason why they don't want you to see a picture of Prophet Muhammad, because he looked just like me. Because Abraham wasn't able to have children. And Abraham had a wife named Sarah. And Sarah had a handmaid named Hagar, the Egyptian, and they had a child. The child's name is Ishmael, and Ishmael is the father of the Arabian nation. Now, when you begin to talk about Jamaica, when you begin to talk about Barbados, when you begin to talk about Haiti, and when you begin to talk about all of these different countries, you come to find out that all of them study the concepts and the culture of West Africa. Why is that? Because through the slave trade, it did not come through East Africa or North Africa. The slave trade came through West Africa. That's why you hear a lot of those who call themselves Ethiopians. But we know before it was Ethiopia, it was known as Abyssinia, and the Greeks is the one that named it that. But you will always hear those from Ethiopia say, man, we're not a part of y'all. We didn't come through the slave trade. But what they fail to realize is all of those brothers and sisters up and down the coast, when everybody here in America of African descent take your DNA, it take you back to West Africa. So now we have a flag. We have a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center. And the 5 points represent love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And as we reiterate so much, a flag that was flying here in the United States when it wasn't even being flown in Morocco. Because Morocco did not get its independence until March 2nd, 1956 from under the French rule, meaning the Moors in America had to go to Morocco, my man was with them, and gave them back the flag. So when you begin to talk about the Moorish flag that was taken down, you talking about coming out of Spain now. We went into Spain in 7-11 as Moors. We came out as Negroes, we came out as colored, and we came out as black. And when you call yourself Negro, colored, or black, you put yourself back into slavery because these are slave names. Drew gave us a divine constitution and bylaws. And one of the bylaws is Act 6 because we know Act 1 is the Constitution. And in Act 6 of our divine constitution and bylaws, know what Drew told us in 1913. At that time, there was nobody here in America teaching anything about Islam. There was nobody here in America able to have this Holy Quran of Mecca legally established until Drew did it. Well, guess what he told us then? He said, with us, all members must proclaim their nationality. And we're teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folk, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live in the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noah Drew Ali the prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Now I'm going to shut up for a minute because I got a blessing for you. We have a brother that was born and raised right here in Portland, Oregon. But his father was born in St. Louis. And I told him the other day, man, check, because of your spirit, you might be some kin to Jerry Lewis-Bey up there in St. Louis. So his father is from St. Louis. But he sound like, Rambo here sound like he's from Portland, Oregon. But let me tell you about Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon is the only state in the Union that had racism in the Constitution. We had to be in the house by sundown. But when you listen to the news today, out of every state throughout the Union, you ain't hearing nobody with a lot of ruckus like you hearing from Portland, Oregon about the Black Lives Matter, even though it was a European woman that started it, and you got a lot of people going around talking about Black Lives Matter, setting us back as a people 100 years, because black, according to science, means death, but I got affairs on which represents justice, and justice is dealing upright, equal, and fair. And we have a brother getting ready to come to you right now from Portland, Oregon, and all that stuff with the Constitution and everything. He got something to tell you, and what he got to tell you is nationality is the order of the day, and you're no longer 3/5 of a man, you're whole because Drew Ali made you whole. So without further ado, I'd like to call our chairman of here at Temple 2, Portland, Oregon, Brother Rambo here.
Islam. Once again, I come here from Portland, Oregon, this beautiful, beautiful city, and I follow a great teacher by the name of Sheik James Lynch-Bey. And it's an honor to follow such a great thought pattern as I follow suit in my pursuit of getting to the level that he and others that have been deeply ingrained in the Moorish Science Temple of America, and follow the footsteps that is clearly cut by way of the prophet Noble Drew Ali.
Right.
Now we have here in this park, Irvington Park, which is known as the Mecca of parks, mainly because of basketball play here in this park during the time I was growing up. And this whole community at one time was filled with Asiatics. Things have changed because gentrification, but my mind and my heart and my soul, my spirit still lies here in this beautiful park. Now, just this past weekend and weekends prior to that, we've been holding tournaments, basketball tournaments, try to get the youth to come back into Irving Park area. Many hadn't been here as my age. I've spoken to brothers that are around my age that have been coming back into the park, hadn't been here into this park since the time of gentrification. They haven't been in the park for 10 to 15 years. That was sad. It's as if a big part of them had been ripped out of their chest and their mind, so they went elsewhere and they just sought solace there. But I'm honored to be here in this park, and I'm honored to have Brother Elijah, another Portlander, who is doing the show for us, the filming of it. And I'm honored that he made it here this beautiful day. And as you can see, these beautiful trees, you can see this beautiful sun, and you can see this beautiful me. Thank you. Now I'd like to go ahead and do a reading from this great book, the Holy Quran, Circle 7, divinely prepared by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And he prepared this for me to share with all of those who are not in the knowledge of what was presented to me. So I will give you a piece of what the Prophet had placed in this great book. So I'll be doing a reading from chapter 20. And we're talking about the holy instructions and warning for all young men. And what we know, as we know that our young men right now are going through a trying time. Not only here in Portland, Oregon, but a great deal of other cities that surround this United States. And here in Portland, Oregon, there's been a great deal of shootings, and these shootings of a few children had gotten shot, 5 and 3 years old. There wasn't life-threatening, but when you're shooting 150 rounds at a complex, someone is bound to get hit. It's unfortunate that these young children or anyone was hit. I believe one was killed. But during this this time, there's been about 15 deaths by way of gun violence, and this has to stop. It has to stop because a great deal of our people are suffering the fate of such. So I'd like to go ahead and do this reading on behalf of those who have lost their lives, those who are suffering because of their loved ones that have lost their lives, and for the children who were shot as well, and those abroad. It states that, beware young men. This is verse 1. Beware young men. Beware of all the allurements of wantonness, and let not the harlot tempt thee to excess in her delights. Now in that reading, we're talking about one getting caught up in the allurements of wrong, the allurements of hate, the allurements of slander, the allurement of murder, the allurement of theft, the allurement of all things that harm, which brings us to harm ourselves, because if I harm my brother, that's harming myself. And if I'm delighting in all of these things that surrounds me from a cardinal point of view, and I'm allowing the harlot to pervert me. So if I'm allowing something to take me from my natural state of being and bring me into an unnatural state of being, because as we were created, we weren't created with a thought to harm. We was created in the thought of love, because from the mind of Allah, the thought of Allah was love. And he presented us here, but we have taken that love and mistreated the love that Allah bestowed upon all of his subjects here on earth. One thing that I'd like to also share with you is regarding how one looks to uplift fallen humanity, because fallen humanity, we know it needs an uplifting. Here in the park, the reason that we have been having these tournaments here back at Irving Park is because we want to bring the young brothers back to from which it is they come. As sap returns to the root from which it comes, so shall man return to the root from which they come. And because these young brothers and these young sisters, families come from this area, and they came growing up in this park, we want to bring that back. We want to bring that spirit back. We want to go ahead and bring back what is our vast estate. As the prophet came and gave us back our vast estate, we must understand what it is that the prophet had brought us, so that we are able to bring that to the youth and those that surround us and want to go ahead and understand the direction of things in their life to help them. That's my duty. So me and a family member of mine named Levon Van. Now Levon he's been bringing his sons and daughters. He has group homes. He's been dealing with group homes for 28 years here in Portland, Oregon. And he has the group homes titled Successful Choices, where he helps and mentors young men of various nationalities, and he helps them to get a better understanding, a better grip on life, because of the conditions they might have suffered and the things they might have been experiencing in the home from which it is that they grew up in. So they're not as bad as one would believe they are, but because of paper, the paper game is a vicious game, because you painting a picture of a youth that's worse than what that youth actually is. And so that within itself is Brother Levon, whom many call LV. He's doing a wonderful job, and I give honors to him for the job that he is doing, as well as with this tournament that he and I are involved with. Now, we have great things going on here. We had a brother by the name of Will that I spoke to just this past weekend. He's seen that I had Islam, for not having this showing. It was tucked in my shirt. But he has seen this symbol, seen the logos. And so when the brother seen the logos, while I was reffing the basketball game, after the game was over, he asked me about Moor science. He asked me if I was a Moor. And I stated, yes, indeed. How may I help you? And the brother spoke to me in the manner that he knew about the Moors, that he himself at one time was practicing as a Moor, but he fell away from it as he had departed and left the society here and went to a society that was more restricted. But one thing that the brother did tell me, and that I had to go ahead and help correct him, and the Sheik speaks of this often, is that the brother stated that he went to the courthouse to go do his paperwork. And when he stated that, I listened to him, but it's my duty to go ahead and correct it, simply because you come through, in order to do such, you don't have to go pay to get the nationality. That's something that's free all over the world, and the prophet brought that to us. And I had to show him and correct him on that, and the brother seen from a keen eye that what it is I was bringing to him made sense. And so that's what is here. That's what I'm here to do. That's what the Moor Science Temple is here to do here in Portland, and that is to make sense. And in the process of making sense, the Sheik and I, we have a meeting today, and that is to go and take a look at a building not far from here, right on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, which at one time was known as Union Avenue. And those here in Portland, Oregon, those that may be viewing from Portland, you may or may not know of Union. It depends on your age, but if you're my age and you know what was going on Union during my time of growing up here in Portland, and it wasn't anything that was good, you know, but hey, things change. And just as I've changed, a lot has changed on Union, and the name has been changed to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and a whole great deal has changed as far as the face of the people that surround this area. The reason I'm speaking in the garden what I'm speaking of is simply because I'm a Portlander. I love the city. There was a time I wasn't too proud of Portland because the mindset of Portland, a lot of brothers and sisters in Portland were dealing in pimps and prostitution and you know, and the things of that like. But that was the mindset. That was Portland was built on. Now Portland has a great deal of gang violence, which Portland was not founded on that. That was something that came in the mid-'80s to Portland. And many of those came from California and set that stage here in Portland, and now young brothers is running rampant on that stage. But I love my city. I want to correct as much as I can correct. I want to protect as many as I can protect. And one way that I can protect them is by protecting myself. And how do I protect myself? I protect myself by following the way of the prophet. I protect myself by studying the literature that the prophet brought me to study. I protect myself by covering my head so therefore I protect my crown for unwarranted debris that may be cast upon it. So I'm trying to get young brothers and young sisters to understand what it is that the prophet brought. Nationality. As we all know, as Moors, that nationality is the order of the day. And if you don't have a nationality, then you don't have any rights that a citizen is bound to respect. And if a citizen is not bound to respect it, that means that a citizen as such as Atlanta, where the 3 Europeans had tracked down a brother that was jogging through the community and just took the life of this brother, because they feel as if they're citizens and this brother had no right, that they could had a right that they should respect by him being in the community that they themselves live in. So they felt as if this brother that was coming through that community didn't deserve to be there. So my position on that is that we must really take a good look at what it is that we're doing here on earth and what we're calling ourselves or accepting others to reference us as being. We have the Black Lives Matter movement. The Black Lives Matter movement is a movement that I understand. I understand what it is that they're trying to project. However, the problem I have with it is that it is taking us further and further and further away from who we are as a people. If we're using this mantra to reference ourselves as something that deludes to slavery, and if we take a look at what it is that's going on, we really got to go ahead and see who is the ones that's orchestrating this. We see the faces of 3 women, 3 Asiatic women. And these 3 Asiatic women, and I'm not here to cast stones at their perspective of who it is that they choose to have as a mate. And who they choose to have as a mate is diabolical opposed to what the prophet as well as Allah had but bestowed upon us. And those women are in the women. But they have Europeans that's pushing behind the scenes what it is themselves have their face upon. And the mantra is Black Lives Matter. And we know as Moors that we're not black. And we know if we continue that forward that we will be set back hundreds and hundreds of more years. But I also understand that there was a time when I was referencing myself as being black. I was referencing myself as being African American. But then the spirit of the prophet touched me, rose me out of that state, and had me identify with who I truly am. And I know that I am a heir of the prophet. And if I'm a heir of the prophet, then my vast estate and my inheritance is sure. And that is me following the way of the prophet, taking the teachings, teaching what the prophet has instructed me to teach, and resurrect myself above the highest of trees. And that is who I am, and that's who I'm going to continue to be, and I'm going to continue to grow and move forward in life. And on that, I bid you farewell. Peace.
Islam, man, that was a beautiful blessing. Hearing Rambo here talk about the youth here in Portland, Oregon, because that's what it's about. It ain't about your old folks. No, Drew Ali say he come for the young and yet born. He said the old could follow if they want. So right now, I have another message for the youth. I have two books in my hand. I mentioned them earlier. I have the Bible, and this is the King James Version. Now we know the King James name is James Stewart, and we know he's James I of England, but I don't want you to get caught up in the illusion that I'm getting ready to give you. Then we have the Holy Quran of Mecca, a book that got legally established by Prophet Noble Drew Ali when he founded the Moorish Science Temple of America. You had Muslims in this country before the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, but they would take this book and had to run and hide to read it. If they wouldn't have, they would have got knocked out. But there's two things I want to talk to you that's very important that's in this book. In Deuteronomy 18:18 of the Bible, it says, I will raise them up a prophet, and I will put my words in his mouth that everybody would understand. And then in the Holy Quran of Mecca, Surah 49, verse 13, it says, I will raise them up a prophet, and I'll put my words in his mouth. And this is what I want to talk about right now, because I have family members that's in the church. I have family members that wear things around their neck like a priest wear. And I have families that's doing a lot of things in the Asiatic community because they got a little finance and they doing some things to help out. But the key to all that is, the books just say whenever a nation is in need for a prophet, Allah will send one. And he had to send Noble Drew Ali because before the advent of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, we as a people was no place on earth. The books say, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be longer upon the earth land which the Lord thy God Allah has given thee. And you honor your father by honoring God, by honoring the fruit of the Spirit, by honoring the Kalima Shahada, by honoring love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. This is when you honor God and do the things that God say, and this is how you meet God. But also, that's your 1/5, because we were 3/5 of a man. And by talking to you about religion, then that's another 1/5. So now you have 4/5. Now there's still a 5th missing, because it says honor thy father and thy mother. Who is your mother? Man derives his name from the earthland. Chinese are from China, Germans are from Germany, and Vietnamese are from Vietnam. So Noble Drew Ali had to come. And he had to come and bring you your mother, which is your earthland, because we was outside of the constitutional fold because we called ourselves Negro, colored, and black. Now a lot of people see black all right. They see Black Lives Matter is all right. I can't do that because I'm much older than them. And when I come up, if you call you somebody black, you better know how to fight. I said it earlier, we didn't start calling ourselves black until 1968 when Martin Luther King got killed. There's no place on earth called black. All those different nations in Africa, there's no place in Africa called black. And the only black flag I know is the one that killed roaches. Drew Ali said, through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which you live. He said the 14th and 15th Amendment, both the North and South in unit, placing the Southerner which was at that time without power with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was in force since 1774 declared all men free and equal. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since the Constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment for the salvation of our people and its citizens. Now, there was a Civil War, and the Civil War was two brothers fighting against each other. One had a different concept that the other didn't, and what was that concept? The Dred Scott decision of 1857. But Chief Justice Roger B. Cannon said the words all men are created equal never meant to apply to the Negro, colored, and black because they was outside of the Constitution, the fold. So the 14th and 15th Amendment had nothing to do with those of African descent. The 14th and 15th Amendment brought Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee back into the constitutional fold, because this is what Drew Ali had to give it to us, because we had to deal with this subject matter, because the citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, all of one family bearing one free national name. So being that we are here in America, our national name is American, but our national descent was Moorish, because they was taken down. When George Washington was at 6th and Chestnut Street in Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when the first 7 Articles of Confederation, known as the day as the Constitution came into play, this is when they took down our flag. They cut us off from being a nation of people. George Washington said, man, I must not tell a lie. I chopped down the cherry tree. So now you find a brother that got a lot of money, and he a millionaire, and he doing a lot of things in the community for the people. You still ain't telling about their nationality. You still ain't telling about their divine creed. That's why when Noble Drew Ali came on these 4 breaks, he brought us Jesus, he brought us Muhammad, he brought us Buddha, he brought us Confucius, he brought us all God's prophets, because all of our people are in the prophets of God. Some in Jesus, some in Muhammad, some in Buddha, some in Confucius. So Drew Ali brought us all to us, because they say you meet him in the spirit. And when you begin to talk about Jesus, when you begin to talk about Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, they are all of the same reincarnated spirit. But when a nation is in need, Allah will send one. There's no one prophet greater than the other, because man is not the body nor the soul. He's a spirit and a part of Allah. So we're talking about meeting Allah in the spirit and in truth. So let's go back to this. I'm looking at the news, and I see a little European girl get on the news and say, Black Lives Matter. I see a brother, a little brother, get on the news and say, Black Lives Matter. I agree from that perspective, because I went to school. And when I went to school, I went to science class. And when I went in my science class, you know what my science teacher told me? He said, matter is anything that occupies space and have weight. So if you're talking about Black Lives Matter from a perspective of anything that occupies space and have weight, I agree with that. But when you begin to talk about us as a people, black, according to science, means death. When you call yourself black, you are separating yourself from your father and your mother. All that our people have went through over the years, and we keep calling ourselves, we separate ourselves from being a part of our brothers and our sisters. Because you know what? Man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. And there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. Now Rambo is my brother from Portland, Oregon, and man, this brother is teaching that gospel. But he's teaching and coaching and teaching basketball, teaching brother how to stretch, but this brother's getting ready to teach something else. He's getting ready to talk about nationality, because nationality deals with human identification. And if you don't have a nationality, you are not identified as a human, because you become human when you took on form and pigmentation. And everybody have a nationality. I asked the gentleman, I said, hey man, what's your nationality? He said, I'm Irish, I'm German, I'm Portuguese, I'm French, and all these are European nations. But you got to understand too, when you talk about the European nation, there was a time when Europe was not even in existence. In your own Bible, it talked about the 7 churches that was in Asia. And the reason why the Bible talk about the 7 churches that was in Asia, because at that time, Europe was not even in existence. So now when we begin to talk about European now, we're talking about a thought pattern. Because we see right here where it talks about the Chinese, it talks about the Japanese, it talks about the Hindus, it talks about everybody coming from the holy city of Mecca. Africa is the cradle of civilization. Just in Sunday school the other day, I was showing one of the sisters who's from Abyssinia, young little girl. And I was showing her where those scientists in China was kind of messed up because they traced their DNA back and they found out that their blood came from Africa. But they always say that Africa is the cradle of civilization. You can't get around that. We mentioned in the Quran where Drew Ali even talked about the Mexicans. And when you begin to talk about Mexico, the same X that's in a Mexium is the same X that's in Mexico. So all of those brothers and sisters too are of our genealogy. So the Europeans did a great job doing the Berlin Conference. They moved people from here and moved some there. They moved people there and moved them everywhere. And Noble Drew Ali, who was the last prophet in these days and time. See, I can't say that something might not transpire on this earth that Allah might not never see nobody else. I can't say Drew Ali is the last prophet and ain't nobody else coming after him. We can't see that because we cannot circumscribe the thoughts of God. But I know in this era of time, I can recognize who Drew Ali is because he did something that nobody else done. And what was that? Told us about our nationality, hooking us back up with the family of nations, showing us on paper that in 1492, when the Moors fell in Granada, Spain, when Isabella, Ferdinand, Fusus, and all of these did what they did, who they do it to, they did it to the Moors. Because when we was in Spain, from 711 to 1492, giving Europe civilization, giving Europe running water, showing Europe how to take baths at that time. I'm not talking about this time. At that time, the European nations were doing things other, but I don't like talking about that because a lot of people take it negative. But I take it negative when you call my people black. When you say that we black, I take that negative. Why? Because I ain't been black. I ain't get a chance to get black. See, because when the time comes for me to be black, I was in the Moorish Science Temple. See, so black according to science means death. And if I got a friend of mine that's a Chinese. They tried to call her yellow. She said, hold up, man. I'm what my forefathers were. I am not a yellow person. You have those, the Native Americans. They say, hey, you are red. No, man, I'm not red. I'm what my forefathers were. But me, you Lynch-Bey, you Negro, yeah. Lynch-Bey, you colored, yeah. Lynch-Bey, you black, yeah. Because I'm accepting everything that you give me. Brother Rambo is working on a little brother. The brother he was mentioning about on the show got a grandson. And right over there, I told that little brother, the brother said, give me 10 push-ups. He said, man, I'll give you 5 push-ups. I'm not giving you no 10, and I'm going to do them perfect. But you and me, we just accept what everybody told. That's why Drew Ali say he come for the young and yet born, because they can think for themselves. We can't think for ourselves. And if somebody tell you they're black and you ain't nobody else in the world except a color except you and me, that means that Rambo was over here singing earlier. That brother was over here singing, and you know what he was singing? He said he got the whole world in his hand. 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 European got the whole world in his hand. He got everybody calling themselves Negro, colored, and black. You tell me they ain't in control? So, man, I'm honored that I'm able to be in the world, not of the world. I'm able not to be able to get paid off or just accept the illusions of the world. And I'm so happy that I'm in the position that I'm in today, that I can come before our Portland listening audience to talk to you about the last prophet in these days and time, Prophet Noble Ali. A brother was born in North Carolina in 1886, and he gave his life a willing sacrifice. He went to Egypt, and when he went to Egypt, he learned some things there. And the things that he learned there, he brought them back to you and me. So now, what we do in the Moorish Science Temple, we have a Holy Quran. And this Holy Quran, what it does, it gets us closer to God, because it tells us to live a life of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We love our brothers and sisters and tell them the truth, that they live in peace, have freedom, and justice will come to us all. So we always honored to be able to come to our Portland listening audience to talk to you about these truths that's needed, because truth is the only thing that changes not. In all of the world, there are but two things. One is truth, and the other is falsehood. And falsehood is that which seems to be. And we're not talking about what is, we're talking about what seemed to be. So in conclusion, I would like to quote from the Prophet Noble Ali's divine constitution and bylaws. And brothers, when you read this, always hold your wife's hand when you're reading it. And when you hold her, when she's reading it, a spirit is going to come through you from our everlasting of the past until the never ending days to come. It said, our divine and national movement stand for the Pacific grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And the Prophet Noble Ali, I'm applying to all loyal, faithful, moral members and American citizens to help him in his great uplifting acts of uplifting fallen humanity among the Asiatic race and nation. For he has suffered much and severely in the past through misunderstanding of what the movement is dedicated to. It is the great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of this divine and national movement. I know that all true American citizens are identified by national and national decent names in order to answer and apply to the free national constitution of the free national republic of the United States of America. The Prophet Noble Ali is going to help this national government. For without a free national name with the decent flag of your forefathers, there is not a national divine title of the government in which you live. This is from your true and divine Prophet Noble Ali. To all Americans and foreign sympathizers, Prophet Noble Ali is the founder. All members must properly attend their meetings and become a part and a parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant from your holy prophet Noble Ali through the guidance of his father, God Allah. Thank you. My time is up, and I thank you for yours. At this time, I recite the Moorish American prayer. Praise Allah and honor the prophet. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Ali. Amen. Thank you, my brother.